Good morning, everyone. I am Rahul. I am the head of software at a small company called Soft Circuits Labs. For about 8 years, I was working as a scientific software developer at a company called Nthought. How many of you have heard of NumPy? Cool. Yeah. So Nthought is where NumPy originally got created. So we do a lot of scientific computing solutions-based work. And I recently became the head of software at a small company called Soft Circuits Labs. We do open source software services, scientific computing services. We do hardware, custom hardware development, hardware prototyping related work. And today I want to talk to you about software patents. This might feel a bit out of place to be talking about software patents in an open source conference, but hopefully by the end of the talk, you will understand why I'm trying to give this talk over here. For about a year, I've been volunteering with FOSS United, specifically around policy-related aspects. Before that, I did a short course on public policy, which FOSS United actually funded, which is why I've been trying to help and I've been involved in the FOSS United community. Mostly in Hyderabad, but also a little in Bangalore and so on. So, yeah, let's have a brief chat. I want to make this interactive, so I hope all of you will humor me and respond to a few questions. How many of you have a patent in your name? Yeah, any of you filed a patent? Have you been granted a patent? Okay, yeah, a few hands here. So the few people who raised their hands, what did you get after getting a patent? Like, did you get anything because you were given a patent? Any answers?
Only filed as of now.
Okay, so yeah, there's one person who's only filed as of now, it's not been granted. Yeah, one other person. What did you get? Okay, you also only filed the patent. So let's move to the other side. How many of you want to have a patent? Okay, a lot more hands. Again, just one more this thing. How many of you want to have a patent? Either you want to apply for a patent or you actually want to get a patent in India, US, anywhere. Okay, more hands. Can I ask a few of you why you want a patent? What is the reason why you want a patent? Yeah.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights. Yeah, of course. It gives you recognition and gives you bragging rights. Any more answers?
Maybe money.
Maybe money. Yeah, you're right. There is money attached to patents, whether that's your company giving you a bit of a bonus because you filed a patent, or maybe you get royalty. Any more answers why the people who raise their hands want a patent?
Intellectual rights.
Intellectual rights, yeah, you're right. So that you created something with your own blood, sweat, and tears, and you want intellectual rights on it. You don't want somebody else to take that over, or you don't want somebody else to prevent you from using it. Any more answers?
Protecting a hardware design.
Protecting hardware design. Again, you spent a lot of time and energy trying to create something, and you want to protect that and prevent other people from taking it over and using it without giving you recognition money. Any more answers?
Not falling in the wrong hands.
Not falling in the wrong hands. Okay, yeah, that's actually a good answer. You don't want somebody else who maybe is bad for you or your company or for your country from using these things. Any more? Yeah.
Excuse me. So, I want the patent so that it could be in the right track on how I want it to go. So let's say I want a patent, I wanted to make it open source. What if I don't have the patent and somebody gets it and makes it closed source?
Perfect. Yeah. So you're trying to do a defensive patent where you came up with something you want to prevent other people from taking it closed source. So yeah, you're filing a defensive patent. Great answer. Any more? Yeah. Professional? Upgradation. Yeah, you're right. It'll give you recognition in professional and personal reasons, and maybe having a patent is going to help professionally. It'll help you get promotions and so on. Absolutely. Any more answers? Stopping? Replica. Again, you don't want other people to copy your idea and not give you the recognition or money. Yeah. Any more? Stop reinventing the wheel. Interesting. So you're trying to communicate to the public that, hey, look, I've done something. You people don't have to do this again. I've already spent the time, money to be able to create this thing, and you're trying to publicize the fact that you have this, and you don't want them to redo it. Yeah, correct. Again, lots of reasons, and I'm trying to get all the reasons that people have in mind. Any more answers?
Trustworthy.
Rest?
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy. Okay, interesting. What is trustworthy? You are trustworthy, or the patent is trustworthy?
Those who are going to use them.
Okay. So for the people who are trying to use it, they recognize you and they trust you because you have a patent. Fair enough. Yeah, it's been recognized by the government, so it does bring about some amount of trust. Yeah.
Probably with my patent, someone else can build on top of it.
Yeah, you're right. You publicize the fact that you have a patent and you're talking about what specifically the patent is. So maybe somebody else can use it and build something else on top of it. You're right. Because again, you're publicizing it. The patent is acting as a knowledge dissemination and not as a prevention tool. All of those are great answers. Can you move to the next slide? A couple of more questions. Do people know of any examples of software patents in India or the West? Yeah.
The one-click checkout, that was a patent.
Perfect. Yeah, a lot of people are familiar with this. It's one of the more popular patents. Amazon has a patent on one-click checkout, where I think they are the only company that is allowed to have a one-click button, and it's supposed to handle all of the buying process. Any other examples of software patents anywhere in the world?
I think e-commerce has software patent.
Yeah, there are a lot of patents in the e-commerce space. Again, like one-click shopping being one of them, but there are more. That's okay. We can move on to the next thing. So there are three distinct concepts. There are patents, there are copyrights, and there are trademarks. Can people tell me what the difference between these three are? You don't have to give me a textbook definition. You can just tell me in your own words what these things are and how they're different. Yeah.
Patents are for ideas and designs. Copyrights are for poems, music you have created, and trademarks are for company names.
Okay. Yeah, so patents are for ideas or things that you created, copyrights are for poems and things that you write and publish, and trademarks are for company names and things that the company is doing which they only want to be able to control. Like Apple does not want anybody else to use the Apple logo. Apple has had multiple cases with actual Apple companies which are trying to sell apples, which have a symbol that even remotely resembles the Apple logo, and they've sued those companies saying, no, we're the only company that's supposed to use an apple which has a cut inside of it. Anyone else want to give me what the differences between them are? Yeah.
Patent is a proof of technical concept. For copyright, it's more of a design elements, and for trademark, it's more of brand recognition.
Okay, yeah. Trademark is more about brand recognition. You want people to recognize this specific name or logo or whatever as belonging to your company. Copyright is a specific text that you wrote, and a patent is a technical concept. It's a technical implementation of something that you did. Great. There's been a whole bunch of answers. Now I want all of you to imagine that you are all working in the Indian Patent Office. There's a patent office that the government of India set up. They are the ones who get all of the patent applications, and they decide whether or not they should grant that patent or not. So all of you are now patent officers, and I want to ask you to evaluate a few patents. So this is a patent application that you got. It's a patent for distributed computer architecture and process for virtual copying. I don't want you to read all of it. I've tried to highlight a few key aspects of it. So it's talking about enable a typical PC user to add electronic paper processing to their existing business process. That is the patent. Going further, they say they want to be able to copy from a process that involves paper going through a conventional copier to a process that involves paper being scanned from one device in one location to another location. And they're also saying they want to be able to copy from a device at one location directly into a business application which is on the network or on the internet. Like for example, you want to be able to copy directly into Microsoft Office or Gmail or something else. This is the patent. How many of you say this should be granted? Wait. How many of you say this should be granted? Okay. How many of you say this should not be granted? How many of you aren't sure? There are a lot of people who are not sure. Can I get answers as to why you're not sure?
Because we don't know what the content is, what they can copy or they can send it over electronic.
So again, like the patent application is very broad, so it covers anything and everything. Any more answers as to why you don't want to? Yeah.
It's basically OCR and fax machine.
It's basically OCR and fax machines. Any more answers?
Yeah, I think the same too. It is most it is more similar to fax machines or OCRs something.
It's more similar
we
to.
cannot patent something that's been used across the industry.
So that's a good way of thinking about it, but that does not. We'll get into it. Any more answers as to why you're on the fence about approving this patent? Any more answers from maybe folks? It might restrict development. What do you mean it might restrict development?
I mean, other people that would extend this technology.
Other people can extend this technology, but they will not be able to if we grant this patent. So this is not a hypothetical patent. This is actually a patent which was granted in the US. And a company which holds this patent went around suing coffee shops and small businesses and made them either go to court or pay them $75,000. And they did this with thousands of companies. Next slide. No, they didn't sue Xerox. It's a different thing. So yeah, this is the next patent application. It's called Data Processing System for a Hub and Spoke Financial Services Configuration. The key thing is it's saying they're monitoring and recording the information flow and data and making all calculations necessary for maintaining a portfolio and a fund in a financial services configuration. The other interesting thing is it also says the data processing system also tracks all the relevant data determined on a daily basis and aggregate year-end data that can be determined for accounting and tax purposes for the portfolio for each fund. Again, who wants to approve this patent application? Okay, who does not want to approve this patent application? Who is a maybe? Okay, answers from the maybe folks.
Honestly, I totally don't understand how the finance is going on here.
Huh.
I can see that some data related to finance is being tracked.
Okay.
But it's all about consent, right? If the tracking is there.
Yeah. So let's not worry about consent right now. Let's not worry about data protection right now. The only thing that they're talking about is you have set up a software system in place where you're tracking data that is flowing through the system and you're automatically updating the system. That is the gist of this. And it's being applied in the software services space. But again, it could be applied anywhere else. Any other answers from maybe folks?
The mutual funds or something or
Yeah. It mutual funds or any other, like let's call it an alternative investment fund or anything.
already doing it actually.
Yeah, sure. Many companies are already doing it, but these are the first people to have filed the patent. So do you grant them the patent? Yes or no? No? Yeah. Okay.
So if you grant the patent, all the existing users or the software companies that already uses technology have to pay that company, right? So it won't be valid, right?
Yeah, you're right. If these people get the patent, then all the other people have to pay them. But that's not exactly a reason to invalidate it because.
No, it's not invalidating, but it'd be unfair, right?
Yeah, you're right. It'll be unfair, but at the same time, they are the first people to put in the patent request. Like if other people were using it, other people had also had these systems. Why didn't they first patent it?
Actually, it depends on the situation. If the patent is being done before these companies come into the picture, or it is being done after the companies.
Yeah, you're right. It's situational. Maybe this patent was applied before any other company was doing it, or maybe this patent was being filed after all the other companies are already doing it, but they don't have a patent on it. Again, a whole bunch of nuances. But the important thing that I wanted to think about is all nuance goes out the window because the text is very specific. The text is very specific and it is very broad. It does not matter what the nuances are if this patent is granted and it goes to court. Because of how broad the text is, if this patent is granted and it goes to court, any company which violates the patent is liable to pay for the costs, is liable to pay for licensing and everything else. Again, this is not a hypothetical patent, this is actually a patent that was granted in the US. And again, a company used this to go around suing a whole bunch of other companies. Next slide, please. So there have been a bunch of reasons that people gave earlier as to why they want a patent. You want it for recognition, because in India and in general in the world, in the current society that we live in, patents have been given a certain recognition. It's sort of like, oh, you went to a certain college, you work at a so-and-so company, you have patents in your name. People get recognition to them, people get bragging rights to them. Maybe you get financial returns on it as well. Like maybe a company that you work for, if you file a patent for that company, maybe the company gives you a one-time financial payout. Maybe they pay you like $1 lakh rupees or whatever. Again, there are multinational companies in India that do this thing where they pay you depending on how many patents you're able to file. And maybe more, like maybe once you have a few patents under you, then you get to grow in the company. You get to go from a senior to a staff or become a manager, etc., etc., etc. It helps in professional growth. All of those reasons aside, one of the key things that we keep coming across is people are saying that either they want to file a patent defensively because somebody else might file something similar and come after them, or people say that it's a way to protect their own intellectual property. The fundamental problem that we keep coming across is that patents in general don't gel well with the software industry. Specifically, software patents are a bad idea. And the problem is we are trying to import this bad idea from the West. The US, software patents have been valid in the US for a very long time now. And for a very long time, companies have been trying to fight against this. Companies and societies have been trying to say, look, software patents are a bad idea, we should completely outlaw them. In that context, there are a bunch of myths that people have, and I want to try and talk about a few of them. So there are a few people who think that the success of the software and SaaS industry is thanks to software patents. How many of you buy this? Again, how many of you think that the first statement is true? The success of the software and SaaS industry in the US is thanks to software patents. Okay, why?
AWS would have not grown if not thanks to the software patents.
So AWS wouldn't have grown if Amazon didn't have software patents. Okay, any more answers as to why this is true?
Maybe in part, not whole.
Okay, so it was part of the reasons why this was the case. Next slide, please. This we don't believe is true. We don't believe it is true because there have been organizations since 2012 who have been calling for the elimination of software patents. And one of the main reasons why they're doing it is because companies like Amazon are actually suing their competitors using the patents. And the problem is the software patents, like the examples that we just saw, are so broad that there's a huge problem when you go to court. The patent is so broad and anybody and everybody can be sued for it. Next slide, please. So again, there is this thought that Indian startups are granted. Can you go back? Sorry. There's this thought that in India, Indian startups and companies are granted more patents than multinational companies. How many of you think that's true? Yeah. Can you justify why?
The number of startups in India are growing rapidly, exponentially. Meanwhile, on the other hand,
It's okay, continue. I'll repeat your answer.
Meanwhile, MNCs are limited when compared to startups, of course. And startups are mostly led by entrepreneurs who have an intellectual idea. And of course, they are patenting each and every idea they got up.
Next slide, please. You are right. There are a lot of startups in India. There's a lot of new companies that are being created. But even now, in 2021-2022, 74% of patents were granted to MNCs. And the reason for that is, you're absolutely right, there are a lot of startups in India, but the problem is the startups don't have the kind of money that MNCs do. It costs money to be able to hire an intellectual property lawyer, it costs money to be able to draft a patent, it costs money to be able to push that patent through the patent office from the submission to actually being granted. So it takes a lot of money for a startup, which the startup could be using somewhere else. The startup has enough things to spend money on, so maybe the startups aren't spending that money on submitting patents. And by the way, like before 2021 and 2022, the number was even more, like almost 90% of software patents were being granted to multinational companies. The next one, there's a lot of people who think that patent litigation, if it ever comes to it, if I ever get sued by a company for patent infringement, it's not going to cost a lot of money. How many of you think it's not going to cost a lot of money? Okay, so everyone thinks it will cost a lot of money. Any estimates on how much it will cost?
They are charging the other companies, like suing the other companies, that will definitely cost more.
Yeah. So how much do you think it's going to cost? What kind of numbers do you have in mind?
Maybe greater than crore or billions or something.
Okay, so there are now people who are saying it will cost crores. Okay, it'll be in the lakhs. Okay, 1 or 2 lakhs. Any other answers? 4 digits. What?
5,000?
In the thousands. Okay. And any other answers? So we have like all the scales. We have thousands, we have lakhs, and we have crores. Any other answers in between? Maybe 50 to 1 lakh. Okay. This gentleman has the right answer. Can you move on? In India, best case scenario, if you're really lucky, it'll cost you maybe 50 lakhs to be able to fight a case. If a company comes and files a case on you because you're a startup and you didn't have the resources to file your own patent and an MNC went and filed that patent, and if they come and sue you, best case scenario, if you don't want to settle, by the way, most of them come, ask you to settle and pay them a royalty. If you don't want to settle and you want to take this to court, best case scenario, it will cost you 50 lakhs. Worst case scenario, it will cost you up to 2 to 3 crores. 2 to 3 crores. The next thing. So a lot of people think that patent litigation cases are going to be settled quickly. People think it will be within a few months. Yeah, so there are a few people who think, yes, you're smiling. What timelines are we talking about? No, give me a number.
Time actually.
Give me a number, give me a guess.
10 to 20 years.
10 to 20 years. Okay. Any more answers?
Actually, 50 years also.
Again, any more answers? Any more answers from this side? How long do you think the case is actually going to take?
Until the patent gets voided.
No, that's 20 years. That's actually a good number. Any more answers? Any more answers on how long do you think that case will actually go?
Best case 5 to 10 years.
Best case 5 to 10 years. Okay, yeah. I think we have covered all the bases. Again, can we go next? In India, again, best case scenario, everything is settled within 1 year. Best case scenario. If the patent case is filed in the right jurisdiction, if it goes to the right high court, where the high court judges actually know and understand the law related to software patents, and they're able to rule on these things quickly enough. Worst case scenario, it can take up to 7 to 10 years. And here's the thing, right? As soon as the patent litigation file is cased on you, whatever patent you're infringing, you have to stop using it. So let's say your company is an e-commerce company and you implemented one-click, and all of a sudden Amazon comes and sues you for it. You're supposed to rewrite the entire e-commerce website to stop using one-click. So now imagine that on top of the amount of time it takes and the money it takes, how do you calculate the opportunity cost of you spending unnecessary time and money on worrying about the case and spending money on the case instead of building your startup? How much do you think that will cost? Like an opportunity cost of a startup founder or a CEO having to worry about a stupid case dragging in the courts. That is as much as multiple crores of rupees, if not even more. The opportunity cost is extremely high for all of these things. Next slide, please. Again, we were talking about the number of patents which were granted to MNCs versus Indian startups. This is the actual number. And again, best case scenario is 2022, where roughly 74% were given to MNCs. All the way back in 2014, almost 90% were granted to MNCs. That is what the numbers look like. And again, this is because MNCs have the resources. They have huge teams of lawyers who are experts in intellectual property, and they're able to go around filing cases. In fact, we have talked to a few people who have patents, who've been granted patents in both the US and India. And they said that they submitted a patent application to the lawyers. The lawyers came back with edits, and they were not able to recognize their own patent because the lawyers generalized it to such an extent that they themselves were not able to understand what it was that the lawyers were presenting to them. It was extremely generalized from the patent application they had originally written. The other problem also is there are companies which buy up patents and go around suing companies. Like what I said, there's how many of you have heard of Reddit? How many of you know that they recently IPO'd? No, everybody knows Nokia, right? Nokia went and sued Reddit right before their IPO, saying that Reddit infringes on a bunch of their patents. You're the Reddit CEO. What will you do? Settle, right? Any other answers? You're the Reddit CEO. Nokia comes and sues you right before your IPO. What will you do?
Increase my API cost more. Settle.
No, that's a very good question. So you settle, you pay them money because you don't want the case to influence your IPO price. And because you now have to pay them money, you're going to increase your API costs on your users. That's a very valid thing to say because at the end of the day, patent litigation is going to end up costing all of us money. It's going to end up costing all of us money because the companies are having to pay more money. It's the same thing with Cloudflare. How many of you have heard of Cloudflare? Again, Cloudflare is amazing in the sense that every time they get sued, they don't back down. There was a recent case where they got sued along with Cisco, Juniper Networks. These two are very big names in the network industry, hardware network industry. They got sued along with those companies. All of those companies decided to settle out of court. Cloudflare instead said, no, let's go to court. And they spent 2 years in courts trying to invalidate those patents. They in fact crowdsourced information where they went to the public and asked them, please give us prior art, please discover prior art that invalidates these two patents. And after 2 years of fighting in court and spending tons and tons of money, they were able to get those patents invalidated and the case got thrown out. If you start a network company tomorrow and this company comes after you, do you have the time and money and resources to spend those 2 years invalidating those patents? No, right? You have better things to worry about. That is the fundamental problem, especially with software patents. Please go on. Again, this is much more broad. This is another thing related to e-commerce. I'll skip ahead because there are way too many examples of this and we're running out of time. Why are we talking about this now? So there was a recent draft policy that the principal scientific advisor to the government of India put out, where they want to support the deep tech startup ecosystem in India. It's a good thing, it's a great thing. We want more deep tech startups, we want more products out of India, we don't want to continue being a services economy. But the problem is what they're trying to do in the policy. One of the things that they're trying to do in the policy is they're talking about these weird managing conflicts related to open source technologies. I'm not sure who went to them and told them that there are problems that they're experiencing with open source technologies. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that the current intellectual property regime does not address the eligibility of computer programs or algorithms for patent protection. And they're trying to say that all the new startups are extremely reliant on these computer programs and APIs, and India should allow software patent. This is what we're trying to fight right now. FOSS United is trying to prevent the government from modifying the intellectual property regime, from modifying IP law to allow software patents. Because if we adopt the same dumb policy in the US, which has been proven to cause a lot of trouble to actual innovation, we'll end up in the same place that the US is in. Why are we talking about it? What is the point of talking about it in the middle of a whole bunch of people who code for a living? How many of you don't code 8 hours a day? Okay, there's a few people who don't code 8 hours a day. The rest of us spend our entire day coding. What on earth are we going to do about this? So there's a very, this is a very simplified way of thinking about a policy. So any policy has costs. Any policy has costs and any policy has benefits. So if you look at public education and public health, everybody pays taxes and everybody benefits from public schooling and public health. Because all of us can go to a hospital and all of us can get a public education if we want to. That's why all of us end up paying for it. So it's a cost on all of us and it's a benefit to all of us. That's why it is diffused benefits and diffused costs. If we talk about software patents, there's a very small set of multinational companies that benefit from it. And at the same time, there's a very small set of software startups and deep tech startups that have to pay the cost of software patents in India. In fact, like what the gentleman said, if a company has to bear that cost, the company is never going to say, okay, it's my responsibility. The company will always charge you more money because they're having to bear the cost of software patents. That is why we need interest group politics and we need to lobby the government to prevent this from happening. And again, that is what FOSS United is trying to do. FOSS United is part of society. And we are trying to go and influence the government. We are trying to influence the free market to prevent them from allowing software patents. Because this is a very simple way of looking at it. There's the society, which is FOSS United and other non-profit organizations and so on. There are markets, which is the free market and all the capitalistic companies. And there is the state. The state is the government. We live in between all three. We work in companies, we are attending a FOSS United event as part of a society, and we are all controlled by the government. And we influence all three things. So what can you specifically do? You can go and talk to people about software patents. Talk to your peers, talk to your family members, try and understand things about them better and try and understand what people think about them better. You can dig up stupid software patents that are granted by the Indian Patent Office because there's no dearth of them. You can try and review patents that are being granted, and if you can try find prior art for them, we can actually invalidate them and throw them out. You can reach out to people in the industry, in academia and the government. We can expand the effort that we are trying to do, which is end software patents. And if you're a technologist and you're interested in learning about public policy, check out the public policy course by the institution called Takshashila Institution. That was the course that got me introduced to all of these things, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And there's some take-home assignments, if any of you are interested. There's a talk which Venki, who's the person who actually leads the end software patents effort, he gave a talk at the India FOSS conference on the same thing. Please go back and watch it. I tried doing an interactive talk. Venki did an extremely thorough principles first approach to talking about the issue. Check out the end software patents work that we're trying to do. We have a website, and there's also the Free Software Foundation, which has an end software patents effort as well. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other things here.